So good, so good, so good.
Great gifts for mom? We've got them. And they're up to 60% off at Nordstrom Rack stores now.
You know they have Marc Jacobs?
Gotta show mom some love.
That is so good.
Snag amazing deals on Mother's Day gifts from Barefoot Dreams, Kate Spade New York, and more. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
Hey everybody, it's Weird Islanders, the podcast, back once again. My name is Dan. That is Mike. How are you this evening, Mike?
I'm doing pretty good. We are recording this during the esteemed Four Nations face-off, one of the most traditional. It's just seeping with tradition and honor. This tournament that was just invented.
Long history.
Yeah. The history is crazy. But happy to take a break from that to talk about some Islanders, or spoiler alert, some non-Islander for this episode, and a subject matter that I love, which is people, including us, overhyping PTOs and players being invited to training camp. It's weird that guys who are on PTOs don't turn into Wayne Gretzky, because that's what you think ends up happening when a team invites someone on a PTO. Everyone's like, oh, this is a perfect fit. And then they're never heard from again. So this is an exciting episode to talk about all of that and more. Yeah,
we've been talking about or thinking about doing an episode on sort of these training camp all-stars for a while now. And we found the sort of perfect road in and a perfect guest. And as we will learn, this is not an Islanders only phenomenon, which is fun to find out. You know, we're not alone in this happening to us. And we're going to get all into that, into a couple of different players with one big focus player right up front. But first, let me introduce our guest tonight. He is one of the hosts of the Pucks on Net podcast, which is all about the Vancouver Canucks. He's also a huge wrestling guy, and he's a great dude. And his name is Ryan Schaap. Ryan, how are you?
Gentlemen, I am doing fantastic tonight. And, you know, you talked about the Four Nations face-off being rich in history and tradition. I can remember being a young child in the snowy winters of Calgary and taking in the Four Nations face-offs.
Yeah.
Then.
You were skating around those frozen ponds saying, man, I just want to suit up for Canada in the Four Nations face-off, presented to you by Chase.
No idea where Russia is in 1996. Still no idea where Russia is, but hey, we're enjoying it in some capacity.
Some capacity. Somebody's enjoying it somewhere. But yes, the only Four Nations that matter, apparently. We are recording this, you know, kind of in the middle of the season, kind of an unofficial midpoint or a break during the season. But I think we have enough of a sample size for me to ask this very basic and yet very loaded question. Ryan, if you could describe the Vancouver Canucks season to this point in a word or two, what would that word or two be?
That would be a juvenile conflict.
Well, that's good.
It's like, you know, when like it's playground stuff where maybe one person did something wrong to start, but both parties involved just double down on bad behavior. And now everybody is the parent, and they're like, I don't care who started it. Like you're both getting detention. You're both getting your parents called. Like nobody cares. Like, you know, I'm alluding to the Elias Pettersson, JT Miller skirmish, conflict, ongoing beef that has lasted through like 4 coaches. It wasn't just Bruce Boudreau. It wasn't Travis Green. Right. It wasn't, you know. So no, there wasn't really this kind of tribalism in Vancouver in this market where it's like, oh, I'm on Team Pedersen, I'm on Team Miller. It's kind of, well, it makes sense to trade both of them, and the return will probably be better for that guy. So we're at a moment right now where one trade has been made. The other trade rumblings have kind of quelled. So everybody's kind of relaxed. You can see it on the players' faces. Everybody's kind of calmed down and smiling again. And it's done. It's over. And the team and the fans and the media can just focus on, like, let's see how they do in a hockey game.
Right.
So it's good.
Yeah. I gotta ask before, I can't let this go. Since you're coming to us from Canucks land, and famously a couple years ago, the Islanders and Vancouver Canucks made a trade that was dubbed a lose-lose trade, and I think has since been proven a win-win trade for both clubs. But and this isn't about the main piece of the trade that left, but you got to spend some time with a beloved cult figure on the island, Anthony Beauvillier. What are your thoughts on him as a player and as a person? And did you enjoy the Tito Beauvillier experience? And then you got to play against him in the playoffs too. So fun little year with one of our favorite players.
So, the Horvat, that trade had to happen. Whether it just like it was the way he was going to get paid. It was Canucks. We liked him as a captain. We thought he was handsome. We didn't think he was hot. He was like, it's a nice to have, but it was time to go. And Anthony Beauvillier came here and he played. I'm looking at it now. He played 33 games with the Canucks. And I went to on behalf of a friend of mine, I went to a season ticket holder signing event, and he was at a table. Oh, I forget it was Ethan. He was at a table with Ethan Bear and Tyler Myers. And I was like,
wait, they put him on a table with Tyler Myers? Like, Beauvillier's like 5'8".
They gave him a couple of yellow pages. And,
right, yeah.
Boost, they had a booster seat. But I'm like, and I watch every game. I'm neck deep into this team, and I'm looking at him like, who is that guy? And turns out to be Beauvillier, and he's a nothing burger, and that's fine. And then I wound up watching him. I watched him play in Nashville. I went to Nashville to catch on a family trip, and I watched the Canucks beat the Predators, and he actually scored in that game, if I recall. And then, he played on 3 teams last season and is now a Penguin. So Beauvillier, oh man, what a household name. What a needle mover. That guy is a hockey player. That's about it.
Right.
He plays hockey.
He does play hockey and scored the final goal in the history of Nassau Coliseum, which is why we love it. This is like the dichotomy of sports, right? Like, we love this guy. We saw him get drafted in that first round. It was crazy. The Islanders had no picks in the first round, and they walked out with Barzal and Beauvillier, something I will never, ever forget in my entire life.
Thank you, Boston.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Boston. And, he wasn't a perfect player by any means. And sometimes I wanted to wring his neck because he was going 20 games without a goal or something like that. But then he scores this enormous playoff goal. And then he gets traded, which happens. And, we all understood. It's okay. The same thing. It kind of run its course. And then he's played for like 5 teams since then. And you're just like, yeah, it's a lot different off the island, isn't it? Like, a lot of teams have a lot less patience for you in those 20-game droughts than the team that drafted you and, has all your best friends on it. So,
well, he did 55 games total in Vancouver, 11 goals, 28 points. And I'm like, the patience, and the leash for him seemed to disappear almost instantly. And I'm like, but he was a good serviceable piece. He could score 15 goals. And it's like, nope, he ain't.
Yeah. Well, Oliver Wahlstrom is finding this out in Boston, where he got picked up on waivers and then immediately was sent to Providence, right? Or was it, he was like,
just in the press box. Yeah, he's living the press box life. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny how that works. One more question before we get to our Weird Islander today, because Mike and I talk about all the time how the Islanders here in New York, sports radio or, this sort of sports conversation revolves around certain teams, the Yankees and Mets, Giants and Jets, Knicks, The Islanders are generally not invited to the party. Nobody really seems to care about the Rangers until the second round of the
Blue
playoffs.
Jackets.
Yeah, they might as well be the Columbus Blue Jackets. Like, they barely exist out here. But that is the total opposite of the way the Canucks are treated out in Vancouver, because they are the number one subject of like sports talk radio and basically the entire sports scene out there. Like, how frustrating does that get as a fan? Because like for us, it's frustrating when the Islanders are playing well and nobody's talking about them, but when they're playing poorly, it's kind of a blessing, and that nobody's talking about them. We can kind of get away from this sort of thing. But like for you guys, the Canucks are always getting talked about 24/7. Like in a season like this, that you said kind of devolved into the juvenile back and forth. Does that become very frustrating, or are you just used to it by now because that's just how the team constantly is covered?
I'm a very self-aware Canucks fan, part of a fan base that is anything but self-aware and anything but chill. Everything they say about this kind of market, it's correct. There's like everything's an ordeal. There's a huge cloak of insecurity over this market because the Canucks have never won anything. They're a 3-time Stanley Cup loser, one to the beloved Islanders. And like, it's just until they finally do something, it's this like, okay, like hurry up and choke. You just break our hearts, get it over with. So they will talk about everything all the time. This market has the time and patience to break down the most minuscule of nitpicks when they're doing well. Right. And even last year, they were like the Washington Capitals last year, where everything's going right for them. You're kind of befuddled by it. Like, how is this supposed to work? How is Pierre-Luc Dubois this incredible when he was the shit out the West Coast out of LA, and so everything was going right for them. When everything went right last year with the Canucks, it was, oh, the advanced stats are going to bite us in the ass in no time, or this is, and it was like, they can't be happy. Right. And if they are happy, they'll find a way to feel dread. So it doesn't matter what is being talked about, how the team is doing, it will be front and center. And they are right where the fan base is very intelligent here. Like, you will turn on the one sports radio station in town, and it's immediately to advanced metrics, not in a PDO cast way, but in like, here's my points, and we're going more than just the eye test. But it's an intelligent market, but it's a 3 times as more insecure market.
Interesting. That's an interesting mix. Here I cannot say the same for that here, because even though people talk, we get constant Yankees, Mets, Giants, Jets talk. It's not very intelligent, to be honest with you. It's just it's the exact opposite of that.
Aaron Rodgers, fellas, how much time we got?
For him, none. Thankfully.
I picked up what you were putting down there about just not being able to even enjoy like the ride of a season where you're winning games because people need to throw cold water. So, as we said, when we are recording this, the Islanders are fresh off of a 7-game winning streak that ended just about a week ago, and the difference between, I guess, your market and our market is when we do get coverage and people parachute in, it's usually just to kick us, even not even kick us when we're down. It's to kick us at all times. So that 7-game winning streak got labeled by some national hockey writer as a disastrous 7-game winning streak, and that person felt bad for Islander fans. So
you're not good enough. You should be looking for the bottom half of the standings. You should try.
Why are you trying to win? What's the point?
Noah Dobson, he sucks.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one that came out of left field, where I'm like, I spent the last 2 years being like, they have Noah Dobson, they've got Ryan Pollock, they have some great pieces on defense, and now it's like, he's actually really bad, and they're gonna trade him for Brock Besser 1-for-1.
Yeah. It gets a little, again, it's you'll only hear that from like hockey people. You'll never hear that. Sports radio in New York doesn't even know who Noah Dobson is. Like, if Noah Dobson ran into the WFAN studios with a dozen pizzas and handed them out to people, they wouldn't know who he was. But
sir, we're gonna need some ID to help you.
Yeah, exactly. Who bought these pizzas? You did? You make how much a year? Anyway, I don't buy it. Anyway, okay. I just had to bring that up because again, the differences are so stark.
No, and I'm glad you did, because I find that so fascinating. Like, and just like the just the measure of hockey interest in the United States, and especially in a market like New York, like, to be fully invested and like love this team, and it's like, okay, if all goes well, they might get highlights on the local news. Like, it's nuts to think about.
Yeah. Well, which is why there's 10,000 Islanders podcasts, including several by us.
Well, you need a few more. Come on, let's
exactly. We're working on it. Okay, enough of that. We are here to discuss a man who very briefly was in the Islanders' employ, I suppose, but has been with the Canucks for several years and has spent a couple of years with other teams before that. We're going to get into his entire career because it's kind of fascinating in a very low-key way. And so, Ryan Schaap, will you please reveal the subject of tonight's episode of Weird Islanders, the podcast?
A fellow that goes by the name of Pius Suter, a Swiss product. One would argue is a Swiss Army knife in the money puck world that we know and love. A delightful little player, coveted for a sensible hockey IQ, the ability to generate offense, be smart with the puck, and play up and down the lineup wherever needed. Coveted by most cash-strapped teams before they jacked the salary cap up and everybody got real rich and got some champagne taste with beer incomes. But he's a great little player. He's not little, but he's a nice addition to a fast puck-moving contending team.
Yeah, that's the greatest intro we've ever had on this show. I put drum rolls in. And I definitely can't put a drum roll for that entire thing, but it was beautifully put. I love it.
Thank you.
I'm very excited. Before we dive too far into it, reminder that we are on Patreon, patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety. Membership gets you ad-free episodes, bonus podcasts, written posts, and a whole lot more. So sign up today, patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety. Okay, Ryan. Pius Suter. But I'm probably gonna ask. I'm gonna try not to ask you this 4 times in this episode, but before Suter came to Vancouver, which would have been in 2023, we'll get to his signing in a few minutes. Had you ever heard of this person ever?
He was recognized in the kind of in the way Jonathan Marchessault was. Like, he was a play driving kind of analytical centerpiece. He was coveted for that, but it was strictly looked at for the cost that you will pay for him. He will probably produce more than that. And I'll be honest, I knew nothing about him when it was announced that they signed him. And all of a sudden everybody comes out of the woodwork, and saying just like, oh, this is great. This is a guy that is gonna be a positive contributor to the team, and he signed in August. And so my first thought, if he's that good, why the hell is he being signed in August? Meanwhile, the following off season, Canucks signed Kevin Lankinen in like early September, and he's the de facto starting goalie and playing in the Four Nations faceoff. So I'm no longer judging when a player gets signed, except for Alex Bregman. He can go kick rocks. I'm a Seattle Mariners fan, so that's why I got a little touchy subject. But no idea who Pius Suter was, and like immediately delightfully surprised with what he brought.
Interesting. So you're a fan. So you've kind of come to enjoy his contributions to the Canucks.
He's an interesting guy. He kind of started the year in a bottom 6 role. The Canucks had a third line that was just incredible last year. It was Teddy Bluger, Dakota Joshua, and Connor Garland, and just incredible production. They were very consistent. So he kind of fell to the wayside, which is great when you have a team that is hoping to do something. To have those types of players like Pius Suter kind of trickle in and out of the second line or the fourth line, like that's great. Depth is great, even center depth. But as last year for the Canucks went on, which was very positive. They were leading the Pacific Division by 10 games for a lot of it over Edmonton. Elias Pettersson and JT Miller, who were able to coexist at this point because they were winning and generally on different lines. They both had 100-ish point seasons. And when kind of one guy went into a bit of a slump or a sluggish stretch, seemingly Pius Suter was put on their line and he turned into be this kind of engine. And he didn't put up a lot of points, but he just, the pace of play and the offense generated noticeably changed. And he kind of jumped from playing with Miller and Besser to playing with Pettersson and whoever. Like it was, there were a few Athletic articles written by Thomas Drance that are like, he's the reason this line is doing so well is because of Pius Suter.
Wow.
What's funny is the way you talk about him reminds me a little bit of how I would feel about Anthony Beauvillier during his prime, which
sure,
it should still be going on, but his star has certainly lost its luster. When Beauvillier was in his salad days with the Islanders, he was the type of guy that you'd say, it's just good. He's a good guy to have on the team because he can play on that first line. He can play on your fourth line. He's just a little buzzsaw, a little gnat. He can be part of like a mosquito fleet line, or he can play with Barzal on the top line. And it definitely it reminds me a little bit of him and why I think Islander fans, not just he had a very infectious personality, but he also was a little bit of a French Canadian army knife. And I guess I gotta also ask you how many times the joke was made about Miller, Pettersson, their feud, and Suter being neutral in it because he is Swiss.
I'll tell you this: the Miller and Pettersson feud didn't really come up until this year. Like there was rumblings, like Elliot Friedman and Sportsnet interviewed them. One of them saying kind of like, you don't have to get along. We're not, we make each other better, but we're teammates. And like, it was just like, until this season, it was kind of, there are different personalities in a locker room. As long as everybody has the same goal, who gives a shit? But now looking back, yes, he 100% was Switzerland, and he did everything he could to just kind of get everybody to let's get to the end. Let's end this war. Come on, fellas.
Would you say that Pius Suter is the best Swiss Canuck player since Sven Berchi? There's a name you didn't expect to hear on this episode.
I love Sven Berchi, former Portland Winterhawk, WHL player. Traded a second-round pick, Jim Benning, the absolute maroon that he was. Traded a second-round pick for Sven Berchi to play middle six, and that second-round pick turned into Rasmus Andersson, who the Canucks wouldn't have had to trade for Philip Hronek with that first-round pick they got from the Islanders if they had, didn't pick that guy. But no, the Swiss players. The best one, obviously, yes, Sven Berchi or Pius Suter. The worst one, of course, Lucas Spiza.
Oh, he's a weird island. We love Lucas Spiza here, man. Just an
May I ask why?
You know what? I'll tell you why. Because Lucas Spiza, when Lucas Spiza joined the Islanders, actually at the same time as I guess Pius Suter did in that same first training camp, it was. That was the year after the guy that we drafted before Victor Hedman left that summer. And so that became it became a very like chip on the shoulder type of team. And a lot of Islander fans of a certain generation, like that is their favorite team ever. They're not far behind for me. And Lucas Spiza played on that team. And that's all you needed to do to be one of the to be a cult hero. And it seemed like he was almost like a poor man's Leo Komarov. Like the whole team loved him. I'm pretty sure like he still comes around the island, which is a common theme too. Like we have guys who play for like 10 games here and then they'll live the rest of their life here because it's a great place to just be rich.
9 games, 1 assist, 4 PIMs.
That's
right. My no matter what, when I hear the name Lucas Spiza, all I think about is a puck being dumped in behind his net. He's got no pressure on him. He's got his back to the play, and he somehow turns it into a scoring chance for the other team. Even they might be going for a wholesale change, but that's all I can think about is his number. I think he was wore number 21. His back to the play, and but yeah, he was great. He was great for the Islanders in his little thing, and yeah, it was fun to have he was an Italian Swiss, right? He was like
that's correct. Yeah.
So fun guy. Oh, look, he played for the Portland Winterhawks as well.
That's right.
So the Winterhawks are the Swiss junior team, and I feel like every Swedish player ever has to at least do one tour with the Canucks.
I think you're onto something. Nino Niederreiter was also a former Portland Winterhawk.
That's right. And a former Islander as well. That
Nino, baby.
Covered. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lucas Spiza, by the way, is a guy who is definitely on our Weird Islanders list, but I'm holding out hope that we can ever get Elliot Friedman on this show, because he mentioned Spiza one time on 32 Thoughts, and you could hear in his voice he was like effusive that he really, really loved this guy, and he might have had some great Spiza story. So I'm really holding out hope. That might have to be our last episode if we ever get Friedman on here to talk about Lucas Spiza. But yeah. Oh, wow.
Pack it up. You're done if you get that if you get that guest.
And real quick before we move on. So the second round pick that the Canucks traded for Berchi ends up being Rasmus Anderson, who's a really good defenseman. Don't feel too bad, because Mike and I did an episode of this very show about Peter Regan, who was a Danish player, played a couple of games with the Islanders, ended up getting traded to Chicago. To make a very long story short, the pick that they got from the Blackhawks in that trade somehow ended up in the hands of the Rangers, who then used it to take Igor Shesterkin. So somehow Peter Regan, 20 odd games or whatever, ended up becoming Igor Shesterkin for the Rangers for life. So it could get worse. It could always get worse, as the Islanders are always quick to help people realize. And now a word from our sponsors. First is always VintageIceHockey.com, where you can get t-shirts, hoodies, jerseys, and more featuring over 100 classic hockey logos. Vintage Ice Hockey now carries a full line of Islanders Anxiety merch featuring our blue and orange brain logo, as well as our Al Arbor and the Island shirts. And as always, our portion of the sales go directly to the Center for Dementia Research. That is VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. They offer a Rosé, a Pinot Grigio, and a Pinot Noir that was named a Top 100 Best Buy by Wine Enthusiast magazine. All are delicious, priced at less than $15 a bottle, and available at local wine shops and at UBS Arena. Learn more at thepinotproject.com. Please drink responsibly. So Suter ends up coming to Vancouver in the summer of 2023. He's a quality player. He helps kind of mitigate, I guess, the tensions between JT Miller and Elias Pettersson, and really was a great part of a really, really good team last year. Coming into this season, was there expectations that he would maybe take the next step, or did he seem to kind of stay in that role that he already had before? And would you say, again, here we are more than halfway through the season, would you say that he has accomplished those goals and has kind of given you exactly what you expected of him?
No expectations were really placed on Suter because so many larger expectations were placed on other players.
Right.
I can't rattle off an Islanders year where so many guys had, banner years, had career years, but the Vancouver Canucks had Brock Besser score 40. You had Connor Garland have almost 50 points. Nils Hoglander 24 goals. Dakota Joshua, who was plucked out of obscurity, had 32 points.
Wow.
And all of these guys kind of punched above their weight class. Pettersson, 90 points, JT Miller 103. So the spotlight was really on, okay, all of these guys got these many points. Clearly they'll get 5 more or 5 to 10 more points next year.
Right.
And they went to game 7 in the second round, so clearly they'll go at least to the West Final. So all these really dumb expectations were placed on a lot of guys. but Pius Suter was definitely not one of them, and which was great because, he kind of started out the year gangbusters. Like he was the leading scorer on the Canucks for I want to say 2 months. Like they got off to a rocky bullshit start, and Suter, put up a handful of goals early, and then proceeded to not score from what is it, December 6th till January 27th. So
wow. So he really is like Anthony Beauvillier. Then he just went two months without a goal. Like that's the Beauvillier plan right there. That's unbelievable.
He's a good friend of mine is Brendan Batchelor. He's the radio voice of the Vancouver Canucks on Sportsnet 650, and he put out a list right around the Miller trade of struggling Canucks, and it was like these guys haven't scored in this many games. This guy's got 1 goal in this many games, and then like within like maybe a week, that list was destroyed because because Batch called him out, and damn, Pius Suter got that big goal against the Blues, and then he got another one the next night against the Predators. So he's back, baby.
That's really funny. Yeah, it's not how it works that way. Yeah, we were all ready to ship Kyle Palmieri off to someplace else, and all of a sudden he starts scoring goals too. Yeah, he did, and I found this really interesting. That Suter had a hat trick early last year in 2024.
And Miller able to draw it back to Philip Corona. Here's Pedersen protecting the puck. Corona kicks his pass. Feeds Hughes. He shoots. Oh, post. Suter scores. It's a hat trick for Pius Suter. All 3 in the third. And the Canucks have pulled even. And Maria Had has made its way onto the ice.
Look at this play by Pedersen. He freezes the Blues forward up near the blue line. Buchnevich, that allows him to go to Hronek to Hughes, and as Hofer makes 1 save, Suter's on the spot. The rebound will pop out. Oh, this hits Miller, and Suter's able to jam this past Hofer, and it's 3-3.
I don't know, these guys sometimes, man, they come out of nowhere, and all of a sudden they become, I don't know about indispensable, but it's like, it's crazy how all of a sudden they become so important to your team. And it's like he has a hat trick, and you're like, I don't know where this guy came from, but more of this. Like I really could use some more of this. I don't know. Mike, I'm trying to think of an Islander player who did this. I mean, they've had so many guys kind of come and go, and I mean, we could make Beauvillier comparisons, but like, can you remember a guy who showed up on a really kind of bargain contract and ended up becoming like a really, really integral part? I'm not talking about the Bridgeport call-up guys who all seem one and done, but I don't know. I'm really struggling to think of somebody who fits this mold.
I mean, it'd be a different style of player for sure, because actually in a former Canuck, but this guy obviously had rocket at his skates, but like Michael Grabner.
Oh, I love Grabner.
Yeah, he burst onto the scene, and like true. That year the Islanders had a bunch of guys that we're going back like 12 years, but the guys that they would scoop up for cheap, and they kind of ingrained themselves to the team. And the thing with these players, whether it's like Grabner or Matt Molson kind of type, you can't imagine life without them afterwards. Yeah. Like they become like your favorite blanket. Like I when I'm listening, you talked about him being able to play different roles with different players, and basically any line. He almost a little bit like JG Pajot is now with the Islanders. Like you can stick him on any line, and you just know that line's not going to get in trouble. Like the principal isn't going to call that line down to their office, and like that. Then if you close your eyes, then you think about life without that player. It's not, as a sports fan, that sucks. It's like, oh God, I don't want to lose. And it's almost like Josh Bailey. I had such a hard time just imagining life without Josh Bailey, and then it happens, and you're like, oh well. There's a lot of players out there in the NHL that are probably better than Josh Bailey is at his point of his career right now. And
but Josh Bailey, I'm looking like he would score those. He would score those big goals, and like just
score those big goals
at big times. So it's like me on the West Coast who, I like to keep tabs on teams, but it's like you're watching highlights, you're watching them in the playoffs. Like he had 16 goals as an Islander in 71 playoff games, and like you remember him. He scored big. He scored the goals when you needed him to, and then you're like, okay, well, his stat line's not bad. Like he peaked at 71 points, but like that's pretty impactful.
Yep.
Pretty, you need that.
Right.
I'm so happy to hear you say that, because we one of the themes on our show, and we found this out that it's pretty true with how when people found out what Brock Nelson looked like a couple days ago, and
holy shit.
Yeah,
but fellas, do you know about the trick on Hockey DB where you can click on the headshots?
I do not.
Okay, so if you go to, you can click on, like I'm on Josh Bailey's right now. You can keep clicking on the headshot, and they have all of his headshots on record, or as many as possible. So you can look at the aging process of Brock Nelson.
Oh my god!
Wow, how about that?
What a nice little trick by whoever developed that site. But we always joke like that. Oh, people are gonna find out who Brock Nelson is in a couple of weeks, and everyone's gonna want to trade for him and all that. But so to hear somebody say exactly how I feel about, how we feel about Josh Bailey, which is that, like a very milquetoast player, I think, if you're not an Islander fan, but he scored some big bloody goals, man. And I'll never forget him. So I mean, this is a show about Pius Suter and some other guys, but I'm really glad that we got to give Josh Bailey his due, because he deserves it at every chance he gets.
Well, Bailey is, and Bailey is sort of like the anti-Suter in that he's a guy who was drafted, was with the Islanders for many, many years, and never seemed to ever kind of fit people's expectations, or was always kind of a disappointment until one day he was 35 years old, and you're like, this guy's a pretty good player. He scored a lot of big goals. Whereas, Pius Suter shows up out of nowhere, and all of a sudden he's on the top line, splitting, in between the two big guns on the team, and the team has 100 points. You're like, where the hell did this guy come from? We all knew where Josh Bailey came from, and we just kind of waited for him to arrive, and it took until he was 32 years old. But it's funny how that happens. But the thing with Suter is that he did not sort of show, again, he showed up in Vancouver, but after he had I got one more question about Suter before we move on.
Yeah.
So he signed a 2-year contract when he first signed, which was obviously in 2023. So he's going to be, I guess, a UFA at the end of this year. Are there any indications that he wants to stay? Is that a talking point up there? I mean, there have been so many talking points for the Canucks. I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of fell by the wayside, but has there been any talk about that?
Much like expectations for, the expectations didn't fall on him. They fell on other players. The contract negotiations have fallen on other players. Like he's somebody that definitely flies under the radar. The Canucks front office has done an incredible job with pro scouting compared to their last GM and front office, who did literally the worst professional scouting I have ever seen in history. Like they just remembered all the guys that they scouted in the dub and said, let's trade for those guys. They should be good. I remember them being good when they were 17. But Suter, it's really interesting what will happen with him, because he's making $1.6 million. He's likely due for a raise and deserves one, and the cap's going up, so I don't think that'll be a problem. I don't know where he falls in the Canucks' plans, because Philip Hedl was part of the JT Miller trade, and before that trade was happening, when the Canucks were talking about trading both of them, it was like, okay, well, they better get a center, or Pius Suter is going to be your top line center, and you'll never win a face-off again. No offense to Pius Suter. There's a handful of centers that are on the team or pending UFAs on other teams that are probably a priority, but he's done a lot of very good things for the Canucks. So I would hope so, but it's not really a talking point on sports radio here.
I'm shocked.
Me too. Now that I think about it.
Well, again, they've been preoccupied with some other guys. So while Suter, did come to Vancouver and a bit as as kind of a bargain, free agent type. And again, I can't believe I forgot Matt Molson. I have his jersey literally hanging in the closet on the other side of the door from where I'm recording this right now. I can't believe I forgot him. But again, totally different type of player. But he did have some NHL experience before that, specifically 3 seasons, 2 with the Detroit Red Wings, which is where he played immediately before joining the Canucks. He had 15 goals his first year with Detroit in 82 games, and then 14 the year later. He scored a shorthanded goal in 2022 for the Red Wings, and who was it against? You guessed it, the New York Islanders, and Ilya Sorokin.
Barzal again. Rink wide, Nelson fanned on. Slap that by Ernie and a race. Look at this. Suter's got it. Suter in alone. Scores! A short-handed goal! It's 2-0. Wow.
Funny bounce again, and Seider makes the play back deep. Takes a hit to do it. It's chipped by the Islander defenseman pinching. And away goes Suter, and he goes short side. And Sorokin's first shot on goal after coming in cold may have hurt the Islanders right there.
I had completely forgotten about this goal, and I'm sure there was much kvetching, and we'll get to why in a few minutes. But yeah, to me, I still kind of picture him as a Red Wing. I know he's been with the Canucks for 2 seasons, but I know for some reason I completely forgot that he even signed in Vancouver, even though, I guess maybe the Islanders don't play a couple times a year, but to me, I felt like he was still in Detroit this whole time. And I did not realize that he was in Vancouver. He has played for another team too. We'll talk about it in a second, but like, Mike, did you still picture him as a Detroit Red Wing? Cause I don't know, for some reason it seemed like he was still there, even though he'd been playing for the Canucks for the last 100 and however many games.
Yeah. When I picture him in an NHL jersey now, I do. Honestly, in my head, I thought he was a Vancouver Canucks deadline acquisition. Recently.
They signed him so late, he might as well have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's just in my head. He feels like that kind of guy. Like the Canucks traded a 5th round pick to the Red Wings for Pius Suter. I remember when he was at training camp with the Islanders, and then you just move on to the next trade. But no, I don't. I remember his Red Wing tenure because I remember him scoring against the Islanders. But I honestly I can't say that I remember much about his Blackhawks, and I can't even think to name like that was a big goal by Pius Suter for the Canucks either. So
he played for the COVID shortened, technically bubble season Chicago Blackhawks. So I don't know what was on that team. Don't want to know.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that was not a well. I mean, we remember that season well because the Islanders had an insane run in that bubble. But yeah, I don't think the Blackhawks or that was a particularly memorable Blackhawks squad. But yeah, so if in case you're wondering why I'm a little bit off here tonight, we're going backwards. So he signed with Detroit in He was signed a contract with Detroit in July of 2021, but that was after he had spent a season with Chicago. And the way he got to Chicago was really weird. He signed the contract in 2020, but he couldn't join the team because of COVID, like Ryan just said. And so he stayed in Switzerland where he had been playing. Eventually he got loaned back to the Blackhawks, the Blackhawks had loaned him to the club he was already playing on and then recalled him from the loan when they could. So that's how he kind of joined the Blackhawks. And the craziest thing about his time with the Blackhawks was he had another hat trick for Chicago, and it included his first NHL goal. So he had his first 3 NHL goals in the same game, and he became the first Blackhawks player to score his first 3 NHL goals in the same game since Bill Kendall in 1933, and the first since Art Summers in 1929 to record a hat trick within his first 6 career NHL games. And if you know who Bill Kendall and Art Summers are, you are a better hockey fan than I am, because I have never heard of these 2 guys. All I know is that when you break records that existed in the 1930s and 1920s, you are doing something pretty sick. I can't even fathom like scoring my first 3 goals in the same game, but Pius Suter did it.
Had a great chance there, and he was going to shoot it, but unfortunately the puck just rolled on him. Here comes Suter, already has 2. He shoots, he scores! A hat trick for Pius Suter, his first 3 NHL goals. In the release here, the puck is rolling, he settles it down, and
right past the glove of Jonathan Bernier. He beats Filppula, looking if he could pass the puck over to Kane. He's not able to, and he says, you know what, I'm going to go for the HT.
Like, that's a crazy trivia tidbit fun fact to be a part of. Like, I can't even, again, fathom, most Islander call-ups come up and then, by 2 months later, they're already back down to the minors. But like, this guy shows up out of nowhere for a Blackhawks squad, in the middle of a pandemic and scores a hat trick in his.
What's interesting about that is he scored a hat trick in his, his first goal as part of a hat trick. He had a hat trick for Vancouver last year, and he's had a 2-goal game this year. So in 337, in 337 games, he scored 71 goals. And what is that? 7 of them were from 3 games. So like, it makes perfect sense that this guy has this 15-goal season, but you kind of forget about the production because he'll rattle off 2 or 3 in a game and then go 20 without. So one would argue his stat line is incredibly representative of the player and person that Pius Suter is.
That's so funny. That's a little nuts. Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, he comes in waves, I guess. So this is all leading up to where the Islanders come in. And basically, the Islanders had him in training camp one year, and he left. He went back to Zurich, which was his home team, without a contract. He had also been to Senators camp the year before and actually played in the Senators rookie tournament. And, this is the kind of thing where, like, people see this and they think, oh, he was in camp and then he went and signed and he's played great for a bunch of teams. I have no idea why the Red Wings or Blackhawks chose not to sign this guy, who's, by all accounts, an extraordinarily productive player, or at least a pretty good product. I mean, he had 14 goals for the Blackhawks, 15 for the Red Wings, 14 for the Red Wings, 14 for the Canucks, and he currently has 14 for the Canucks with 25 or whatever games to play. So he's a pretty consistent guy. Neither of those two teams chose to sign him. And in the Islanders case, though, and in the Senators case as well, he explained later on in an interview with I think it was the Province, that he came over here just to test out the NHL. Like, he wasn't planning on signing a contract and wanted to kind of see what the deal was, see how, the players were, see how the level of play was, and then he would make a decision and sign. And when he did come to sign, that was with the Blackhawks. So, Mike, I remember when they brought Pius Suter in, and we had an article about him at Lighthouse Hockey. He had been very productive in the Swiss National League. At that point, he had 216 games, 83 goals, 90 assists. He had won a championship with Zurich in 2018. So, like, he was coming in with a bit of cachet, and then he was gone just as soon as he showed up. And it was like, what happened to that guy? Oh, he's gone. All right, well, I guess he went back to Zurich. So again, that was part of the plan, but he didn't intimate that to us, and we didn't know. And he just sort of seemed to be one that got away. But what do you remember Pius Suter's very brief appearance at Islanders training camp in 2018?
I remember I remember the build up to it more than anything else. Because it was a time when the Islanders needed to like make these kind of shrewd, tidy piece of business type of moves again, and the like the team was obviously at a crossroads. That's underselling it. And I remember everyone being like, this is what they need to do. This is if they want to stay competitive, or at least be like at the very least like respectable this season, they need to just go get these guys that other teams always get, and they always work out for other teams, even though that's not true. Like, that's how you think of these like PTOs or these European free agents, that when other teams sign them, it works out, and then you're kicking yourself, why couldn't we get that free player? That's stupid. What, like, who's sleeping at the wheel, whatever. And then they do it, and the player doesn't even register. Like, Pius Suter's not a New York Islander officially. He just came here for training camp, and it just is a good reminder. Serves as a good reminder about these kind of players, that like, just because it looks like a a tidy piece of business when it happens. It's more likely than not going to work out. And we'll go through the list shortly, or a few other guys on the list too. So it's now ingrained in me that when the Islanders, even when they signed Max Siplikov, who's obviously been a very good contributor to the team this season, everyone was so excited, and I was like, just remember Pius Suter and remember Jan Kovac and all these other guys that you were excited about coming over, Anatoly Golishev, all these guys, and then they don't even officially become New York Islanders. So that's he serves as a warning and a lesson to me now. So no matter what, when Pius Suter scores a big goal in the playoffs for the Canucks this season, Ryan, like you can rest assured that there's somebody on Long Island, and the first thing he's thinking is, don't let PTOs trick you. That'll literally be the first thing like my brain says to me as this goal gets scored. It's because anytime I hear his name, it's just a reminder to me about how this all works.
PTOs giveth and PTOs taketh.
Yeah. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. We should mention too that these trips over here for Senators Camp and for Islanders Camp weren't Suter's only time here in North America. In fact, as Ryan mentioned before, he was part of the Guelph Storm. He actually 127 games played, 52 goals, 44 assists, 96 points with Guelph. He also had 43 goals in 2015 and won an OHL championship in 2014, the year before. So he actually had a pretty darn good junior career before going back to Switzerland, but he was undrafted, which again begs the question, what are people thinking? I don't understand.
Well, look at those 2 years he had. Like he plays for Guelph. He gets 9 goals, 24 points. I don't know if he grows a foot taller or, starts working out, but he comes back to the OHL the next year, scores 43 goals, has 72 points. Like something has clicked in this player, which, it makes him so unique, is like, there's so many kind of, ebbs and flows of him like understanding hockey or understanding the North American game better. And I think he just, like, so many people underestimate him. Like he just like is a bit of a mystery who keeps surprising people. Whoever decides to take a chance on him, he's like a Swiss lottery ticket.
Yeah, seriously. When I saw that he had played for Guelph, it's so funny. All these years later, I see that name, and the first thing I think of is Todd Bertuzzi, who was another former Canuck. Obviously, I see that name, and I just picture myself.
Canuck right there, baby.
That's right. Big Bert. He was. I don't know. He was big, but he didn't want to stick around the island. And I just can picture myself reading issues of the Hockey News, being like, "Man, this guy's going to be so good. It's going to be so good when he gets here." And then, that didn't last very long, unfortunately. But I did see him score 2 goals against the Bruins in Boston. So that's my time.
That rules.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Is anyone out there?
Another salesperson enduring the endless search. Exhausting. If you want to get right to the right conversations, you need LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Whether you're looking for new leads or strengthening existing relationships at your top accounts, get right to the right conversations with LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Try LinkedIn Sales Navigator now with a free 60-day trial at linkedin.com/trial. That's linkedin.com/trial.
Terms and conditions apply!
So we have been teasing before that we had some other training camp all-stars to discuss. And in doing research for this episode, I was shocked to find that one of the guys that was on my list as an Islanders training camp all-star was also a Canucks training camp all-star. So it's funny how these things work out. Ryan, what can you tell us about Latvian import Mix Indrasis and his very brief time with the Canucks in their training camp in 2013?
I would love to tell you something meaningful or insightful about this player. I don't recognize this name. There was he was a development camp in Viti, which is a step below training camp. No, this name is insanely foreign to me, and I have no idea.
I'm not surprised. That's okay.
I was like, I don't know who these cats are, but they mean something to Islanders fans, and I'll give them that.
Yeah, everybody means something to us. But yeah, so Indrasis, he came over again. Very, very good player over in the KHL. Attended Blackhawks camp in 2012, Canucks camp in 2013, or I guess prospect camp or development camp in 2013, and then Islanders camp in 2014. And like Mike said, this was a guy who came over, and we were like, "Ooh, this might be a sneaky good pickup. This might be the guy." And we got fooled again. Mike, what do you remember? Because I know you remember this guy because again, we never forget anything. But
we bring him up. This is a guy we bring up way too much.
Yeah, we thought this guy was going to be Mike Bossy. We thought coming in for training camp, like he was going to all of a sudden light the world on fire, and it didn't really work out that way.
No, it didn't. And he I remember when he came over and he had a connection to Ted Nolan, which I remember because he had played for. Remember when Ted Nolan did that weird stint where he's coaching like the Latvian national team or something?
Hell yeah,
yeah. So there was
crushed it in the Olympics that year.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean you can't not want to run through a wall for Ted.
Absolutely,
still do. And I remember that. So I guess there was something there, and I remember reading like, oh, there's like maybe Gar Snow and Ted Nolan had talked or whatever if they had patched things up, and that's why Indrasis is here. And I also remember thinking, because once again we're at a point where the Islanders were not this. They weren't in desperate times at this. I mean, existentially they were, but like in terms of like their actual roster, they were coming off of a couple of decent year, like a good year, bad year, which is much better than what was normally going on with us, where it was just bad year after bad year. And I remember thinking like this is a guy who's going to play a role. Like there's a spot here for this guy on this team. They've just brought in some. They had a decent like free agent year. They've got this like kind of young, exciting core. He's going to be. He's perfect. Like this is the perfect kind of player that exactly what the Islanders should be doing. He's definitely going to make it. And he didn't. And I think he had more fanfare than Pius Suter did when he signed his PTO. And I was really surprised that this guy, Mix in Indrasis didn't become a household name for Long Islanders because it felt like a surefire thing at the time.
Yeah.
He won a championship with Brenus in the Swiss League Division 1. So late in 23-24. So that's saying something.
Yeah, he's still going. Maybe he comes back.
Maybe he will come back. Maybe he'll come to Islanders alumni night. We'll see one day. But not only was I shocked to find that he had been at Canucks camp, but I was shocked to find he scored in Michigan. Like he scored a Michigan in a game.
Цибульский, спас за ворота. О, Indrasis, он это сделал! Микс Indrasis забил этот гол, вот тот, который привыкли называть шайбой Гранлунда.
I don't speak Latvian, but I know these guys are very excited when they show this clip. And maybe we should call this the mix. I don't know. Why are we calling it the Michigan? Why don't we call it the mix? I think that would be a lot better. Maybe not.
We don't identify as Wolverines on this podcast.
Fair enough. Our last player, our last Islanders training camp all-star. And again, if you've been listening to this whole time and you've been a follower and a reader at Lighthouse Hockey, you know where we're going with this. Because this guy came in with the most fanfare of all. I think you'll agree, Mike. That would be Czech player Jan Kovar, who, after 5 very productive seasons in the KHL, signed a contract. He's the only one of these guys who have actually signed a contract with the Islanders.
Wow.
Came over, signed, went to camp, and then was cut. And was going to be sent to Bridgeport, and he didn't seem too happy about it. He decided to take a few days to think about his future, which is always a great sign. When the guy can just say, no, I'm going to go home now. And they ended up waiving him to terminate his contract. He signed a PTO with the Providence Bruins. And I remember very clearly people being like, great, this guy's going to become a Bruin suit. Like all of a sudden, again, we went from picturing him as being, Clark Gillies for the Islanders to great. Now this guy's going to be Cam Neely and he's going to score 1 million goals against the Islanders as a Bruin. But after 2 months, he returned to the Czech Extraliga, which is easily my favorite European league name of all time.
It's so extra.
It is. It's very extra. I love it. And he's ended up playing in Switzerland, and he's currently in Switzerland, and he is Zug. He's their captain of the Zug team, and he's won championships everywhere in the Czech league, in the KHL, and in the Swiss league as well. Mike, I know we all have our Jan Kovar memories. What are yours? I know this guy came in with quite a bit of fanfare and hopes, and then within a month they were dead. And the contract,
that's what I always remember is
right.
Like the difference between Mix Indrasis and Pius Suter, who were just straight up PTOs, and hey, we'll see if we can get the Swiss lottery ticket to cash for us. And then someone like Anatoly Golishev, who's like we'll just draft this guy in the middle round, and if he ever comes over, it might work out. And it obviously didn't. But and this guy had like an NHL contract for 1 year and $2 million too. Like it wasn't like Max Siplikov is on an entry level minimum deal right now. And this guy comes over with the $2 million contract, and that should tell you, like, the Islanders, they think he's making the team. And that makes you think he's going to make the team. And not only is he going to make the team, but if they're paying him $2 million without him playing an NHL game, he's going to be good. And I remember this deal being the only one I can remember where other, the insider cohort was like a lot of other teams were in on Jan Kovac, but the opportunity with the Islanders is why he went there. And being like, oh yeah, that's how we have to sell it, is because we're supposed to suck this year without the guy we drafted before, Victor Hedman. Just sell the opportunity here. Like that's how we got Jack Hillen, to come out of college.
Kevin Churchman was another one.
Yeah.
I can't believe they offered. I don't remember this guy. Or the name kind of sounds familiar. The kind of bidding war, but for them to give him $2 million,
right?
Yeah.
Like not a league minimum. Let's see what you got, kid. Like this, I guess this was, kind of peak KHL. Like I can go make more there. Like you better pony up, because that's unheard of nowadays.
Yeah, there might have been a salary floor consideration too. Now that I think about it, because
I'm sure there was something going on, and
right,
but yeah, just $2 million. I mean, I'm sure if we look back at the salary cap that year, that probably had put him like right in the kind of sweet spot on that Islanders roster.
Right.
It wasn't loaded with any sort of superstars at the time. It was before Nelson had signed his extension, and I think Lee had just signed his. So, but anyways, he comes in and he must have just been dreadful. I can't imagine that. And the other thing I remember being mad about was when, they put him on they buy him out to terminate the contract. And very soon thereafter, he signs a PTO, and as you said, not with the Boston Bruins, but with the Providence Bruins.
ones.
I'm like, well, you don't want to go to Bridgeport with the team that's paying you $2 million, but you'll go to Providence, which is literally Bridgeport, just a couple hours north. What's going on here? So I remember being a little perturbed by that, and also living in fear that, like you said, this guy's this is gonna come back to bite us. So Cam Neely is the Czech Cam Neely for sure. And I know, I guess that would have been David Cam Neely is not a great thing with the Canucks podcast, but
that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. So yeah, these, it is funny how these guys come in and maybe I thought it was just us. Like I just thought it was maybe Islanders fans that put way too much kind of stock in these dudes who show up, and they have a history of playing really well overseas, and maybe we're just so desperate to find a scoring winger or that big offensive star that we just attach way too many hopes and dreams on these dudes who just literally got off a plane and don't know Long Island from a hole in the wall. And all of a sudden, we're asking them to become all-stars here. I mean, Ryan, can you remember any other guys maybe that have shown up in Canucks camps that maybe you thought, maybe not to that degree, but maybe this guy works out. Maybe they can find some sort of diamond in the rough here and change the course of the season.
Well, a player that kind of came out of nowhere as a UFA, like Jan Kovac, was Andrei Kuzmenko. they coveted him, but they signed him. It was a bidding war, and it came down to like Canucks and Oilers. Canucks got him. He scored 30 to 30, like over 35 goals his first year. They signed him to a $5 million extension for 2 years, 10 million total. Absolutely craters when he's playing on a team with expectations and structure. Right. And like that's the big problem with these players, that the KHL, there is a very specific type of style of play, and there's a very specific way to phone it in and still put up points. And it all happens, but like it's the chance you take. But clearly there was some level of desperation for the Islanders to get him, and also maybe have a bit more of a salary floor. But every team has a guy that comes in as a PTO or as a 5th or 6th or 7th drafted player that they had a good development camp, or they had a good Memorial Cup, or this or that. This is going to be something, and they just turn out to be absolutely nothing. Like there was Andrew Castle's kid, Cole Castles, who was drafted in like the, I don't know, whatever round. And in the rookie or in the development camp, Connor McDavid was there in his rookie season, and Castles like defended him. He was the shutdown center against him. And we're like, my God, we've got Manny Malhotra, we've got Matt Barzal, we've got name your Ryan Kessler, like Cole Castles is the guy. And you see all your fans and your blog posts like, oh, here's our projected lineups, and they disappear immediately because they aren't that good. They don't work that hard, and they're just lotto tickets. But if you're kind of challenged like the Islanders are, like why go to the Islanders when you can play in Madison Square Garden, or why go there when you can go to play with the Devils or the Bruins or the Penguins or Philly? Like everybody is still pretty damn close there, and kind of can offer a little bit more optimism. So we all have them, but it's tough. It's tough when your team can't get it done in the draft or get it done at free agency, and you're like, okay, maybe we can get 15 Pius Suter goals out of this guy, and that'll be good, and that'll be a win for us.
Yeah, right. There's a reason why this team, once upon a time, this same fan base was very open to an absolute con man buying the team and was chanting "Save us, Spano," because we just wanted so desperately to have a savior come in and help us, and that's kind of along the same lines as here.
The NHL was a wild place in the 90s.
Yeah, a little too wild.
Anything goes. They made no money. It was great.
Yeah, I always love looking back at trades from those eras and just being like, what? Doug, like every I feel like every week, like Brett Hull or Doug Gilmour, Adam Oates, all these guys I'm like, how these people would be like thrown in jail for making this trade these days. And then you read like, oh yeah, it's because the team A, like the Buffalo Sabres were in financial distress, so they had to trade this player to like get $10 million from someone else, and you're like, oh god, what a different league.
In the Canucks tried to offer Pavel Bure a contract in Canadian dollars, as opposed to the league standard of American. So financial hardships in that era. Oh, yeah. Like, we all gripe about how kind of corporate and generic the NHL is right now. Like, it was great if you were an Avalanche fan or a Red Wings fan in the 90s, but goddamn, everybody else was kind of hoping they can make payroll and
just wake up in the morning and have the team.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Try sharing a market with the New York Rangers.
Yes.
Wait, they signed Theo Fleury? What the hell? And then, they end up missing the playoffs for 7 years, but still, like, come on, God. Really?
Seriously? Those Rangers years are just incredible. I'll never not marvel at the old bastards they put together and like,
oh my
what
God.
the hell isn't this working?
Yeah. That was the best. Yeah. Bobby Holik like actively hated being there. He's like, I want to go back to. I got a lot of money. That's why I'm here.
Right.
And basically, one of my favorite NHL in that era things is that before the Islanders had traded for Alexei Yashin, the Senators like offered, I believe it was him, right? They offered him a deal, and part of the deal was Yashin would then donate like $2 million to the Ottawa Arts Center, and then the Ottawa Arts Center would kick that money back to Yashin's parents by like putting them on the board. And
wow!
So it was like some crazy money laundering scheme.
Wow!
Yeah,
that's crazy.
yeah. It was and it was Yashin's parents. I think were like,
we'll take care of you. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it blew up in their face, and that pissed everybody off. And, like,
that's incredible.
And then he came to the Islanders.
Wow, that is amazing. Ryan, I hope you've had a lot of fun talking about a guy who clearly means a lot to you as a Canucks fan. And 336 games played, 71 goals, 70 assists, 141 points in his career with Vancouver, Chicago, and Detroit. But obviously it's his time with Vancouver that's really kind of cemented Pius Suter's career. I started asking you a couple of words about the Canucks season, but if you can come up with a couple of words to describe Pius Suter, what would it be?
Helpful.
Perfect.
Thank God you're here. Thank God you can plug some holes, and thank God you can win some faceoffs and score some goals. He is the epitome of, the cliche of the Swiss Army knife. He's just like, he's a Toyota. He's a Toyota Camry. Like, thank God it's, he's not going to score goals every other night. They're going to go in, but he's going to be able to help you in some way. And just kind of doing research for this, I'm like, man, when you don't kind of take the time to realize or kind of contextualize what these players are, you kind of take them for granted. And you're like, oh man, he has been just what this team needed in several key moments. Like, I'm not gonna, I got some warm fuzzies now for Pius Suter. I'm not gonna lie. I do need to joke. Like, I am like, okay, like I'm gonna come on and talk about Pius Suter, and in my mind, I'm like, nah, this is probably good. Probably a segment for for their podcast. So like, how much can we talk about Pius Suter for? Like, this will be like 15, 20 minutes tops. And then I'm like, oh,
nope.
I looked at your Patreon. I'm like, oh, how are we going to talk for 90 minutes about Pius Suter? And here we are.
That's the magic of Weird Islanders, the podcast. We have dragged hours of content out of guys who have played barely any games for the Islanders.
I love it.
Yeah, it's they are uniquely suited for a podcast like this. And yeah, once you fall down the rabbit hole, it's very hard to climb out. And if you ever do a Weird Canucks podcast and you do an episode on Anthony Beauvillier, you have to have Mike and I on to
come on, why start there? We got Garth Snow, we got Richard Park,
right?
Yeah,
favorite of ours.
Cliff Ronning.
Yeah.
Yes, we did an episode on Cliff.
We did an episode on Cliff Ronning. Yeah,
I'm gonna have to listen to that one after this.
Yeah,
I love Cliff.
We loved Cliff, man. That was like a pretty earth-shattering day for me. On the Islanders, I'm like, Cliff Ronning is a New York Islander.
That was amazing.
He's so fast, and then he showed 95.
And he was good. He was really good. He showed up. Yeah,
he's a persistently good player. He's beloved in Vancouver. He's from the Burnaby. He played junior hockey here, and his son Ty was drafted by the Rangers as a please and thank you. But I don't want to ramble on too long, but they're notorious beer league men's league players around Vancouver. And one time a buddy of mine wound up playing on a line with Cliff Ronning and Ty Ronning. And he said, I didn't even come close to a puck.
Yeah.
Those I just stood there like I was Scottie Pippen in the migraine game. Right. They weren't doing it. And Cliff, I mean, he's probably around 60 now. Like he has a real reputation for taking things real seriously and giving it his all.
That's funny. Yeah, well, that's what he was doing before he came to the Islanders.
Hell yeah,
he did it on the Islanders too. And I will say that Cliff Ronning, when he showed up, he tried, which was a lot more than a lot of other veterans at that stage of their career, where they'd show up like Brian Ralston showed up and was like, I fucking hate this place. I can't wait to leave. So I always have a soft spot for Cliff Ronning, and
hell yeah.
I'm really happy to hear that that's what he's doing.
Right.
because
just taking names.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
God, that makes me so happy.
that-
It makes me like him even more. But yeah, we've
Yeah.
had this. I mean, we did the Trevor Linden episode.
Hmm.
Kevin.
He's a
Reed.
god here.
Yeah. Very handsome guy.
Yes, still.
Yeah.
Aging very well. A lot of children in our region born in the 90s are named Lyndon. It's not a joke. Like he is beloved. He's if only he won that cup.
I highly recommend you go back and listen to the episode we did on Trevor, because I was an intern for Stan Fischler when the Islanders made that trade, and I've never been so happy. At that point, I think that was the happiest I had ever been as an Islanders fan, and of course, it did not end well. It was particularly for the two guys that got traded for Linden. Went on to have great careers, and Linden was only here for a year and a half. But we relaxed our sort of games requirement on Weird Islanders, the podcast, to get one in about Trevor, because it was so weird that he was here, and it was the circumstances that got him here was so weird, and I just remember that era so well. And he is beloved, at least in my house, probably as much as he is in Vancouver. So I totally get where you're coming from. But I hope you've had a lot of fun. I should have probably warned you that we can drag a lot of content out of guys who haven't played. I mean, this guy didn't play any games for the Islanders. He played a training camp.
Say you relaxed your policy for Trevor, but like Pius just showed up on a
Well, it's got to be less than a year. So Suter is still within that. He didn't play a year. It'd be less than a season. Trevor was a season and a half, or it's even a season and change. So
I was talking to my my co-host on Pucks on Net, Rash. I was like, yeah, I'm doing this Islanders show with a guy I follow on Blue Sky, and I'm talking about Pius Suter. He brings up his DB. He's like, what the hell is that guy talking about? Pius Suter didn't play for the Islanders. I'm like, I think he was there some way or another.
Yeah.
Like I don't know why they would be wrong. They seem to have their shit together.
He was here in a weird way.
Yeah, in a weird way. I will tell you when this episode comes out, and you could have him listen to it, and he'll understand.
Hell yeah,
immediately. But that's a perfect segue. So the podcast is called Pucks on Net.
It's a Vancouver-based hockey podcast. Okay. We might spend 40 minutes of an hour and 20 talking about the Canucks, but
Gotcha.
We are talking. It's a league-wide focus. We've been doing it for 10 years. We've always tried to have a little more representation on our show. So we've had female co-hosts for a long time, and people of color, and just how the game impacts so many walks of life. But we're here to have fun. We've spent a long time telling people we're the third hockey podcast you listen to. The goal is you've listened to 32 Thoughts, you've listened to whatever.
Yeah.
You're going to listen to us. You're going to laugh. You're going to have fun, and you're not going to be like, these goddamn idiots don't know their shit. It's a well-informed, fun show. And we're happy to be out of the muck in Vancouver, and maybe into the out of the darkness and into the light. But I enjoyed the hell out of talking with you fellas tonight, and I'm going to overstep my bounds and say I'm more than ready to come on again and talk about another weird ass Canuck Islander combo.
Oh, we got a lot. Don't worry about it. We have an endless pool of them, and many of them are Canucks. I've listened to Pucks on Net. It's fantastic. I highly recommend everybody checking it out. You're right. I should have mentioned it. It covers the league, and you guys are a lot like us. We start talking about the Islanders, and then we kind of go off and wherever. So,
totally.
Definitely check it out wherever you can find podcasts. YouTube too, if you want the video. Fantastic. Well, it was great having you on, and definitely we'll get you on again. Don't worry.
Thank you so much, boys.
Michael Leboff, where can everybody find you on Twitter?
The Big Lebowski with 2 E's.
Follow Mike at the Big Lebowski. Become a member of patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety. Find us everywhere: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. You know where everything. Our theme song is Knuckles by Bjorn Falk. Listen to more of Bjorn's music on Bandcamp. Read Lighthouse Hockey every single day for your most up-to-date Islanders news and discussion. Islanders Anxiety podcasts are part of the Fans First Sports Network. Shop VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. Ryan, I forgot to ask, where can everybody find you on social media? I know you're on Blue Sky as well.
Follow me, Schaap Top on Blue Sky. I got rid of the hell. I still am browsing Twitter, but I don't post on there. That'll show those rich billionaires. But you can follow me everywhere, Schaap Top.
Yeah, please do. As do I. Mike, any final thoughts on Pius Suter, Mix Indrasis, Jan Kovar, Andrei Kuzmenko, or any other training camp all-stars that so captivate us and then let us down?
Like I said, if you took anything from this episode, I hope it is that next September or August when some random European guy that you've never heard of shows up to Islander at training camp, and all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, this guy's going to be great.
Yep.
Just remember those 3 names you just said. And I do want to thank Ryan for giving Josh Bailey some lovely words earlier too, because that is you'll always be very high in my book for that, for noticing our boy Josh from a continent away.
The Islanders of the mid to late 2010s resonated very well and reached all angles, all aspects of the hockey world. That was a great team. I just like to say, fuck the Tampa Bay Lightning. And Matt Barzal is a BC boy. Right. He is one of the best centers in the NHL. And I hope that the Canucks trade for him because Patrick Waugh doesn't like him.
We don't know if he I think he likes him. I don't know. We don't know. I know we're joking. We know that Waugh does not like Pierre Engvall. That's the one guy we know.
Yeah. I don't know what Lou is doing.
Yeah, well, nobody does. That's Lou. Nobody knows what he's doing. But perfect way to end it. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back in a couple weeks with another Weird Islander. Until then, keep the Islanders weird. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.